I love fishing mountain rivers. I love it for their beauty, peace I find there, solace, they're uncrowded, and of course, I love the trout that live in them. There's no better river for me to find these things than the upper South Fork Boise River. Its flows are gin clear with deep dark tailouts, winding compressions, boulders, pocket water, abundance of trout, and miles and miles and miles of river and trout all to myself. I'm here to experience all of those really cool things, and I know I'll be rewarded with wild rainbows in the 12 to 20 inch range. And I know that I'm going to catch them on a dry fly. And man, there's just nothing better than ripping a lip with a size 16 dry fly. I know if my luck holds out, I might even be lucky enough, just maybe, to stick a wild bull trout. If you've never been to Idaho, when you do, you need to put the upper South Fork Boise River on your bucket list. You'd be a fool not to. If you live in Idaho and fly fish, then you are cheating yourself if you have never fly fished this river before. It is a golden gem.
Hey, Mike here at Northwest School of Fly Fishing, the old fish hobo, and yeah, you know, I'm pretty lucky to live in southwest Idaho. I have access to a lot of rivers, lots of rivers. Centrally located, I can go to Oregon, I can go to Wyoming, Montana, eastern Idaho, northern Idaho, and I got a variety of rivers where I'm really lucky enough where I can fish 12 months of the year, all the way through December. And the start of the new year, I'm in the desert fishing rivers down there. But in one particular river we have locally here that's probably one of the top 5 tailwater fisheries for rainbow trout in the Northwest. And it's called the South Fork of the Boise River. And it's famous for its large rainbow trout and the hatches. You know, there's just a variety. You can have a whole season long caddis hatch, PMDs, pink alberts, mahoganies, blue-winged olives in the fall, blue-winged olives in the spring, and so on. Of course, there's half a dozen different varieties of stoneflies on that river. So we get those hatches, and it becomes a pretty popular place to fish for both out-of-staters, and certainly in the Treasure Valley of Boise, where I live, it's a good-sized metropolitan area full of fly fishermen, and it's close to home, and it can get quite crowded there for all the right reasons. It's not uncommon to go there, but like right now, and we're talking to the first week of October, we're going to be entering into the blue-winged olive hatch for the fall. It's not uncommon to go up there and just see quite a few cars and quite a few guys fishing the waters where you want to fish. But there is another South Fork of the Boise River that's hardly ever fly fished. And that is also the South Fork Boise River, but it is the river that flows into the reservoir. So the South Fork of the Boise River, tailwater river, flows from Anderson Ranch Dam down to Arrow Rock. The river in particular that I want to talk to you about is the upper South Fork Boise River, which is a freestone river. It is picturesque. It's unlike the South Fork Boise River, which is pretty denuded of trees. The South Fork of the upper South Fork of the Boise River, the Freestone River section, it's just picture book beautiful. Pine trees, this beautiful wide flowing free clear water for miles and miles and miles. And I was lucky enough to be up there the last weekend, and it was sunny and warm. We're talking about October, and it was in the 80s, which is really quite warm for this country. There was still people there, but they were camping and recreating and swimming and having their quads. And there was only one fly fisherman that I saw the whole time I was there. And I only briefly spoke to him, and he knew what he was doing. So for the 2 days that I was there was nobody fly fishing. Now, the section of the river that I was fishing between Featherville, and Baumgardner and beyond, Baumgardner and Hot Springs, you're talking 25 miles of river. And I'm the only fly fisherman on that river. That's the beauty of that river. As soon as the runoff ends, that river is just ready to be fished. And I like to go there for the peace that I find there and the beauty that I find there. The fly fishing there that I found, certainly when I was there, was exceptional. And there wasn't one section in that whole length of the river where I saw another fisherman, or let alone fly fisherman. So let's delve in and give that some thought. It's certainly an alternative if you've traveled all the way to go to the South Fork Boise River below Anderson Ranch, the tailwater section. It's certainly an option. It's only going to be about an hour's drive around the reservoir till you get to the South Fork there at Featherville. And you need to go up there and give it a try. To get there, it's exactly a 2-hour drive from pretty much the shop right here, and I'm in West Boise. As it took 2 hours to the minute for me to drive from Boise to where I'd parked my car or my truck and slept that night. So you're not too far from Boise. And like I said, it's about another hour. It's just only an hour from the lower or the tailwater river. But you're in a perfect setting up there. You're really centrally located. There's all kinds of roads up there. You have miles and miles of river and trout. Eventually, you just keep following the road and the river, and it gets smaller and branches, and eventually you'll end up in Sun Valley Ketchum area. It's fly fishing only from Baumgardner Hot Springs on up. So odds of you finding anybody that far up is rare. I've been fishing the river for decades, and I can't ever recall seeing a fly fisherman up there. But what makes that river really cool to me is it doesn't matter what time of the season I'm there. There's going to be a summer-long caddis hatch. And the caddis hatch that I ran into was epic. Epic. And I was just chilling out, out there by the truck, sitting in my chair, sipping coffee, writing in my journal, just dinking around, fixed dinner, and then I said, well, sunset will be the time that we need to get on the river. And sure enough, as soon as the sun went down, and I could just barely see the sun up on the hills, up on top of the mountains there, I walked over, grabbed my bag and my rod, and I walked down to the river into the perfect spot that I believe would hold caddis if there was going to be a caddis hatch. So I got down there and I waded out in the river, and I probably had about knee deep, and I had probably a third of the river on one side and 2/3 on the other side. And I just stood there and waited. And I was probably there a good 20, 25 minutes. And I'd throw a few odd cast here and there just to have something to do. And in the peripheral of my eye, I could see across there that sure enough, I saw a flash. And I looked over, I just stared there for about another minute, and I saw another fish come up. And the game was on now. There was literally probably 50 to 100 trout in there, and they were just munching caddis, all behind a little riffle, and they were just out there. It was kind of all riffled into a nice little tail out, and they were just in there. And if you got it, and I was using a size 18 tan caddis emerger. And just get a good roll out there, get a good cast, a really good presentation where you want it to be. You can't see your fly because you're in that dark, between light and dark, but you see a flash and you're set on it and you're on. And I probably worked that hole until dark. I had to use a my headlamp to get out. And my partner finally caught up with me. He caught a few there too. And that's what I had my eye on all day. I could see caddis flying around. So the neat thing about that river in particular versus the South Fork is you have summer flows there, and it's not governed by a dam. So the water is such that it really settles down in the summertime, and you can really access the water. I think I was fishing at about 150 cubic feet, but the evenings were just epic. I mean, it was incredible. You lose track of fish. Of course, the disadvantage with a caddis hatch, generally around the west, is they start late in the afternoon or really around sunset. So you're really compressed to what you can see, and you get any kind of roddy in your fly, and you're just sitting there in the dark trying to figure it out. So that's the one bad thing. But it was dark by the time I got off the river, and here in Idaho we can fish at night, so it's nothing illegal there. And then we walked back and had a big campfire. But that was really the coup de grace. During the day, has great dry fly fishing, and in particular, there's no fish. This is a freestyle, so you're really not seeing a lot of fish rising, if any, but you're just identifying sections or parts of the river where, God, if I was a trout, I'd be right there. And when they really look fishy like that, they're in there. And that's pretty much what we did with hunt trout like that. We were just really looking for that water, and we were able to run down there and catch them on dry flies. And then we find these really deep holes. That's when you bring your nymph rod with you. And the biggest fish we caught was probably a good 18, 19-inch rainbow trout on a nymph. And most all the fish that we caught on dry flies and the caddis evening hatch was on size 16s. With the exception of the caddis hatch, I was using attractor flies, in particular Annihilator. You can use a humpy, a really small size 16 stimulator. You want to use small flies. These are, we're talking 12-inch trout. We really want to grab that fly. But the key was to really keeping that fly floating high and dry. And that was the whole day. And we only stopped for really lunch. And we came back, I don't know, we had an hour and a half before dinner. And then after dinner, we just waited for the sun to go down. So it's a really good dry fly river for just dry flies, and you don't have to nymph it. But when those deep dark holes are, I like to run up to the truck, grab my nymph rod, and because that's where the big ones are, and you have the whole length of the river to hunt those fish. So I could go down to the famous South Fork section where everybody else is at, and then find a place to fish, and then drive up and down the river looking for a spot that I can fish that no one's there, or I can drive an hour from there or less and be on miles and miles of Freestone River where there's no fly fishermen. Well, it's not a flip a coin for me. It's an easy decision to make. I can certainly see the lure and why I'd want to go to the South Fork, but for that solitude and that peace and just being out on your own with no one around but you need to take a good hard look at the South Fork, upper South Fork of the Boise River between Featherville and really Baumgartner Hot Springs, or in particular Sun Valley. And you can do that all summer long. And so there are campgrounds there, and there are people there that like to recreate and drive their razors and their ATVs around, because there's places to do that. I mean, there's just so many roads and places to go up there, and there's all kinds of little streams and things up there. So for a person who likes to be in the pine trees, likes the beautiful stuff, and likes to catch a lot of trout, I think that the upper South Fork should be an option for you. If you're not from our area and you're traveling through our area, or you're going to come up to southwest Idaho, or Idaho in particular, to fly fish, you certainly need to put that river down in your Rolodex, so to speak, and do some research on it. And I'd highly recommend that you fly fish that river. And for you guys that live here locally, don't ignore that river if you're looking for the things that I look for in fly fishing, which is more than just big trout and big crowds. That place will give it to you in a heartbeat. Well, if I'm lucky, somewhere, somehow, I hope to see you on the river.